And joining me now is Congressman Elijah Cummings. You saw him right behind Amanda Pete there. You co-sponsored the bill on illegal trafficking. Why the focus on illegal trafficking? What are you trying to accomplish, especially from the perspective of someone who represents urban communities?
Well, it's very important with regard to urban communities, because what we're finding is that folks are finding straw purchasers. That is, you'll get a criminal, Andrea, who then goes to a person who has no record and gets that person to purchase guns, and then they will send those guns to urban areas. And so you may have a situation like we recently had in Georgia, where guns were being sent from a state where there's restrictions strong. They then send them to be sold or distributed by gang members to urban areas. And so trying to get to that straw purchaser, which this bill goes to, is very important. And so basically what we're doing is increasing the penalties for those people who do the straw purchasing. And number two, we're finally having and producing a drug trafficking bill, which says basically that if you are purchasing guns to then be distributed to people who should not have them, like felons, then you're going to be possibly subject to a 20-year sentence. And so, again, this is a bill, Andrea, that everybody should like, except straw purchasers and those who want to get around the laws that Congress has already created.
There's a lot of talk about the assault weapon ban. As you know, the president still says that he's pushing for this despite opposition. Even we hear negative things coming out of Harry Reid. What about the assault weapon ban and the likelihood of that? Or is your focus more on handgun control and the gun trafficking bill? Yeah,
our focus here is on the gun trafficking bill. And let me tell you why, Andrea. I'm a strong supporter of the other provisions that you just talked about, machine guns and assault weapons and clips, high-capacity clips. But this is something that we've gotten Republicans to agree with us on. In other words, this is the first time in a long time in the House where we've got co-sponsorship with Republicans. And we had two yesterday as our co-sponsors, and now we've added another 3 Republicans. And we expect that before it's all over, we're going to have quite a few folks on both sides of the aisle, and we'll have a bipartisan bill. There's another thing that's very significant. Andrea, you spent a lot of time looking at Fast and Furious. During the Fast and Furious hearings, the ATF officers that came to testify before us basically begged us to create a drug trafficking law, because basically what they were saying is that it was almost impossible for them to get convictions of these cartel leaders and people who were actually buying 60, 70 guns a day and then distributing them all across the country to criminals. So this is an effort to get at that. Those other provisions are things that, you know, maybe we don't agree on with, maybe the Republicans don't agree with us on, but you never know. I think we're now opening the door finally to working together like the American people want us to, and perhaps we can have some other provisions later. But right now we're going to concentrate on this, and I think we're going to get it through.
You've got law enforcement behind you. Ray Kelly, the New York City police chief, of course, was on Jon Stewart last night. This is what he had to say about the weighing the balance between the assault weapon ban and doing something about handguns and illegal trafficking.
It is a concealable handgun that's killing people. Assault weapons, I think,
right,
they should be eliminated. But they are responsible for less than 2% of the shootings in this city.
And he was making the point that Governor Cuomo's law in New York State is the toughest in the nation, arguably, but the guns are still pouring in, and they're coming up from the south and coming up that I-95 corridor, and a lot of them are stopping off in Baltimore and in your part of the world.
That's exactly right. And Andrea, this law, the one that we are pushing, creating a trafficking law, clearly would have a tremendous impact. You got to understand, these guns are more than likely, many of them, being purchased by folks who are standing in for criminals. The criminal knows he cannot get a gun. Therefore, I mean, we have one case where a lady bought her boyfriend, who's a criminal, 64 guns. She bought them in Georgia, and they ended up in Oakland. And the police found them at crime scenes. So I think that, people wonder how can we then reduce those guns going into urban areas. I think this is an excellent way to do it, and that's why I think this is a no-brainer, or should be, for Republicans and Democrats.
Congressman Elijah Cummings, ye of great hope, thank you very much. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
And coming up, what cuts